Welcome geniuses, I'm Genie, your best buddy for A-levels. In this channel, we'll bring you to explore the secret formula behind success.
Hi. This lesson, we will continue with probability. We will focus on how to find probability from a two-way table. And some questions, we can answer it by using nCr method. In my previous lessons, I have explained point 1 and 2. So let me quickly go through this. What does it mean by probability of an event? Is actually the number of outcomes for that event divided by the total number of outcomes. That will be the probability. And please note that the probability will always lie in between 0 and 1. And the second point, conditional probability. And it means that A, and given that B has occurred. And this is the calculations, the formula. When you read the exam questions, important, refer to the keyword given. Okay. And now we look at the point 3. If two events are mutually exclusive, it means these events cannot occur at the same time. And then probability of A intersect B is equal to 0. Let's look at an example here. An ordinary die is thrown, right? Event A is saying the number of is an even number, and B is an odd number. So what is the probability of A intersect with B? Okay, so if we look at event A, there are 3 possible numbers, which is 2, 4, and 6 when an ordinary die is thrown. Okay, then look at B. To get an odd number when you throw a die, it's either a 1, 3, or 5. All right. So what is the probability of A intersect with B? That means out of 6 possible outcomes when we throw a die, the event we are looking at is the probability of A at the same time intersect with B, right? It means the number has to be even number at the same time is an odd number. And you know this is not going to happen, which is 0. And hence the probability is 0. Okay, since the probability of A intersect with B is equal to 0, hence we can conclude that event A and B are mutually exclusive. Or we can just call it exclusive. All right. Now we look at some exam question here. This is the question. From October, November 2012, variant 63, question 3. Ronnie obtained data about the gross domestic product, GDP, and the birth rate for 170 countries. He classified each GDP and each birth rate as either low, medium, or high. The table shows the number of countries in each category, right? This is the two-way table that I mentioned before. So we can tell the column will be the low, the median, and the high. So the row will be the GDP, the low, the median, and the high. One of these countries is chosen at random. All right, out of 170 countries here. So part 1, find the probability that the country chosen has a median GDP. All right, to find out the probability that the country has a median GDP, first, the denominator is the total number of outcomes, correct? In this case, they are altogether 170 countries to choose from. And then we are looking for the probability that the country chosen has a median GDP. So we will look at the median GDP, which is the middle row, and we try to sum them up. 20 plus 42 plus 12, which is 74. All right, then that will be the answer for part 1, 74 out of 170. The probability of a country that has a median GDP. Now part 2, find the probability that the country chosen has a low birth rate given, right? Keyword given, that it does not have a median GDP. Okay, to answer part 2, based on the formula that I have given before, I will write it down like this. We are looking for probability that the country chosen has a low birth rate. So let's say I put it as low birth rate. Right, given it does not have a median GDP. So median GDP, but does not have prime. Okay, then according to the formula, we need to find out the low birth rate intersect with does not have median GDP over the probability of does not have median GDP. All right. So we will try to find the intersection between the low birth rate, which is the first column here, low birth rate, and intersect with does not have median GDP, which means we are looking at the low GDP or the high GDP. And the total of them will be 3 plus 35, 38. Right, divided by total 170. All right, then divided by the denominator is the probability. Same thing, out of 170 countries chosen at random, what is the probability that this country does not have median GDP? Okay, so median GDP is the middle row, 74. So does not have median GDP, which means we are looking at the low GDP or the high GDP, correct? And we know total there are 170 countries. So we can just take 170 minus the median GDP, which is 74. And by doing this, we are getting 38 divided by 170 over 170 minus 74, 96 over 170. And 170 can be cancelled off. So the answer will be 38 divided by 96. All right, that is how we use the formula for conditional probability when the keyword is given. If you are able to see the probability, then you can straight away determine the probability of 38 divided by 96 and to get to the answer straight away. Part 3. State with a reason whether or not the event, the country chosen has a high GDP and the country chosen has a high birth rate are exclusive. So to answer part 3, we are looking at the country has high GDP. So H, high GDP, and the country chosen has a high birth rate. H, high birth rate. So what do we get? High GDP. So we're looking at the third row and intersect with the high birth rate, the third column. And you can see it's a 0. So which means it's a 0 divided by 170. Basically, the probability is 0. All right, so since this probability of high GDP and high birth rate is equal to 0, hence they are exclusive. All right, they are exclusive because the probability of them intersecting is equal to 0. So that will be the answer for part 3. So now we continue to look at the part 4. Okay. One country is chosen at random from those countries which have a median GDP. And then a different country is chosen at random from those which have a median birth rate. So in order to understand it, we have to choose 2 countries, one after the other. All right. So first country is chosen from those who have a medium GDP. And the second country is chosen from which have a medium birth rate. So part 4, find the probability that both countries chosen have a medium GDP and a medium birth rate. So median GDP and median birth rate. So first, we have to choose a country from those which have a median GDP. So again, median GDP, we are referring to the middle row, the second row here, 20 plus 42 plus 12. Total, there are 74 countries to choose from, which have median GDP. All right. So out of these 74 countries, we are expecting the country chosen has median GDP at the same time has a median birth rate, which is the intersection of them, 42. Okay, so that is the probability that the first country is selected, is chosen at random from those which have median GDP, 74 country. And this country not only has median GDP, at the same time is also a median birth rate country. And we have 42. And then the probability is 42 over 74. N. So multiply N. Now we are selecting the second country, right? And then a different country is chosen at random from those which have a median birth rate. Okay, now we have to look from the median birth rate, which is the second column. Median birth rate, which is either 5, 42, and 8. And we can tell total there are 55 countries which have median birth rate. Okay? So that means we are going to get it from total 54. All right. Why suddenly it is a 54? It is because the first country selected has a median GDP and median birth rate, right? So now it's being selected. So 42 is no longer 42. Now it has only 41. So by looking at it this way, you can tell the total has become 54 instead of 55. Okay? So then from these 54 countries, those which has median birth rate, what is the probability that we are getting this country has a median birth rate and median GDP? At this point, 41. So the probability is 41 divided by 54. And then we are getting the probability that both of these countries have median GDP and a median birth rate. Okay, then we can use calculator. And the answer is 0.4309. So 0.431. All right. That is the answer for part 4.
That's all for today's video. If you're interested in more genuine sharing by other geniuses, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on the notification bell, ding dong. Also, if you're struggling with 1 or 2 past year questions and the mark scheme just doesn't seem to help, Genie has got you covered. Feel free to let us know what question it is by filling in the Google form linked in the description below. GenieUs Hub will get genius teachers to fulfill your request for the solution. Genie will see you next time. Bye-bye.